So, I got a question, Matt. I've done the little napkin math.
Okay.
I have an idea for a social enterprise.
Right.
I did the work. I did do the square thing, find out if I can do something good with it. How do I get capital started? I don't have enough to start this. I know I can make revenue soon, but how do I get someone to start it?
Right. So what you're talking about is either startup capital or investment, right?
Yeah, that works.
Okay. So one of the big ideas, especially in Canada right now, is impact investment. It's coming up and it's coming soon. The idea that there are investors out there that want to put their money towards something that will both earn them some financial return, but will also create some good at the same time. So impact investment is the idea that you take investment and you accept a lower rate of return for the same time frame. Whereas where a regular investment might get you a 7% return, an impact investment might get you 5%. But you'll be doing more good with the money at the same time. That's the core foundation for the investor. For the organization that's receiving the funding, the idea is that you need money to start something up. Let's say you're trying to start a moving company and you're trying to hire people with barriers to employment so that they can get into the workforce. Well, you're gonna need trucks. You're gonna need maybe a place to store stuff. You're gonna need potentially an office space. You're gonna need computers or scheduling software. A lot of things that cost money. And so the idea with investment, especially impact investment, is that you'll take the money initially up front and you'll make sure you'll pay them back later. In the meantime, you have access to the money that you need to start earning the revenue, to earn a profit, to put it back into growing the organization. The idea with investment is that the amount you're earning in profit is more than it costs to pay back the investment. So when we're looking at investment, there's a couple different kinds of investments that can be made. First is debt investment. So you're just taking a loan and you're going to pay it back later. You could get a debt investment from a bank. You can get a debt investment from family. Almost anyone with a well-drawn-up contract, well-drawn-up contracts are key, can provide financing to the organization in the form of debt. So they will have the cash now, and assets to be used, against the liability of the debt that will need to be repaid and the interest associated with it. That's the simplest and easiest to understand form of financing. The second is equity financing. If your social enterprise has a structure that has ownership to it, so this can be most for-profits and some co-ops, you can sell a portion of the ownership in exchange for the money to start doing the work. So the investor in that case will own some percent of the company in exchange for the money provided to get it going. So in that case, you're transferring a little bit of control, and so you're going to need to be much more careful who you're inviting in, because they will influence the course of the enterprise. And if they provide enough equity funding, equity financing, that is possible that they could end up owning more than half of the organization, in which case they become the controlling shareholder. That means they can make any decision they want about the organization, but you've received the financing to do it. So if you have good partners that are willing to be bought out later, then it's a more involved form of debt financing. And if there are partners that you really want to have involved, people that are going to bring something good to the organization, having them have partial ownership can be a good way to keep them invested, keep them involved, and get them working towards growing this organization.
Where do I go for it? How do I get it? Who do I talk to?
Right. So for debt equity, like I said, banks, there might be individual investors. There's a whole ecosystem of venture capital and angel investors, people that are trying to make ideas happen and have the partial credit for getting them going, and also the financial return so that they can improve their wealth, but also be able to keep contributing to future projects. But especially in Canada, we're anticipating a federal fund coming up, the Social Investment Fund, that's going to be used by a bunch of organizations across the country. They're going to match investment that's being put into these kinds of organizations, these social purpose organizations. And so the Social Finance Fund, it's going to become a big doubling effect on all the other investment that you could get from the banks, from the equity firms, from even friends and family, depending on how the contracts are structured. Well drawn up contracts are key. In Canada, that's the landscape we're looking at. Basically, it's people with money or organizations and entities with money. Any of them could technically impact invest.
So we have impact investment.
Yep.
What are other ways I can get that startup money?
Other ways to get money. I need money to do work. So if you're a social enterprise and you're linked with either a nonprofit or a charity, whether it's internally, like the social enterprise is a program of that other organization, or if the social enterprise is just in a financial partnership, if they're acting as the financial partner with the social enterprise, then you can have access to donations. If you're connected with a charity, then the charity can receive donations on your behalf and then funnel it to you, act as the financial partner that way. And you can also apply for grants, depending on the kind of impact you're looking to make. There could also be just industry grants, grants for businesses that are for starting up, because there are plenty of entities, often governments, that are invested in trying to make sure that there's other new organizations coming up to do different kinds of work. Governments, economies tend to do better when there's a variety of people trying to do the same thing, because each organization is going to have a different approach. And so there could be industry grants available. When we're looking at impact investing, often we're looking at what do we need to get the assets that we need to start creating value and earning revenue. One of the great examples of a project that could take advantage of impact investing is Aki Energy. What they do is they install geothermal on remote homes, often in reserves in northern Canada. The idea is that installing the geothermal allows the residents to pay a lower energy bill, a significantly lower energy bill. But it takes a lot of money to put geothermal in the ground. So an impact investment strategy there could be to reduce poverty in these northern communities. You can take the investment up front and you can put in the geothermal. You've created an asset that then the people that are living there will pay for the energy, the heat provided by the geothermal loop. The individuals will be saving money because it costs so much less to heat their homes instead of using natural gas. So for the time it takes to repay the impact investment, you could take in the actual cost of what the energy was, plus a bit of margin to pay back the investment. But if that full cost is still less than what they were paying for natural gas, that's social impact. The people who were energy poor, who were paying too much for heating, they're paying less. They're saving money. And for people on a tight budget, that could make a huge difference. And you're still earning the margin to pay back the investment. In that way, you've used the investment to create something that has value, that creates value, that is for people with the ability to pay, because they were already paying the high cost. Now they have to pay less. And over time, you can pay that investment back. And then, once that investment is paid back, you could either choose to then reduce their bills to the actual cost of what it costs to heat, or you could keep that margin and use that to develop other projects in the future. Use that as the capital that you invest internally into more of these assets that can be used to earn revenue. In that way, as the total amount of capital available to the organization grows, so does the impact, because more people are getting access to lower cost energy to heat their homes, and the organization is able to grow and be more sustainable because it has a regular, recurring source of revenue. It's stable, it's something that you can plan around. And in that way, impact investment can be used to really kickstart these kinds of initiatives. And finally, another way that you can get startup money is make something small, sell it. Find the few people who really care about that and use that first round to fund your second round. If you're able to find a group of people that really care about what you're doing, that are willing to buy the unpolished first edition, they're likely to be your supporters anyways. They just want something that gets close. So those first supporters, those people that are willing to buy that first unpolished version, they're going to be your biggest supporters anyways. They just want this thing to exist, and so they're going to be willing to buy in when it's not quite 100%. They'll buy the 70% version. And then with that purchasing, you'll receive the money from having made and sold a product or service, which you can then use that revenue to fund the next round. Often this form of funding is called bootstrapping. You can also look at the customer adoption curve. These are your early adopters. They just want it to exist. They're willing to support something a little riskier, something that might not work perfectly. They're willing to put up with a bit of jank to get something that gets closer to what they want. You're not going to get everyone with this first test, but you'll try to hone in and find those few people who really care. And this is going to lead me on a tangent of market segmentation, and you should not try to appeal to everyone. We're not going there today. There are other videos for that. Go watch them.
I like the selling of the minimum viable product just to a person. Start it. Go do the thing.
Yep. Because the minimum viable product is often closer to what they want than you think it is, or you'll realize it's totally off and you need to restart anyways.